So we've looked at a lot of different ways to create dynamic pages. So it's not exactly DHTML that you're used to if you're a web designer, but at the same time, it's extremely powerful. It has really been the glue that has kept our web pages together over the last few years, especially closer to the beginning of web development. Because what you're doing is on the server side, creating things that you can process and show and display for the client side. And it really allows you to really make some fantastic websites and really do some dynamic things. Back early in the day, it was called personalization, and now it's really taken on many different forms. And you really see this a lot when you talk about the ASP.NET universe and those types of things where controls on the server side are actually outputting code to the client side. And a lot of code in PHP, a lot of open source solutions do the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's a shopping cart or what have you. It's dynamic. And this page in particular, if we just view the source, I did mention at the bottom here we have some JavaScript. This is created dynamically, these lines here. And I did mention that in the previous set of videos. This has to come at the bottom because when this page is actually rendered, when it's actually created, it goes top down. So if you put that JavaScript at the top, it doesn't know about these particular form fields. They haven't been drawn yet and given form names, for example. You have to give them names, and it doesn't know if the JavaScript's up here. Only after these fields are actually created and updated, the browser actually has some internal variables of its own that it set. The JavaScript at the bottom is going to be parsed last, and that's going to allow it to actually remember or know what these fields are going to have there. So that's kind of what you need to do. Make sure it's at the bottom of the page, or put it into some of the internal events that are a part of the page if you're used to doing event programming with working with the HTML and things like that. You can put events right in there, like clicking events, but form loading events and things like that. And that's pretty much what ASP.NET does in the short term of just explaining it really briefly. It takes a lot of the information that you're used to or that you can do in dynamic ways on your own, and it makes it easy for you to do that. And that's a different story. But PHP has its advantages to doing things like that as well, because there are lots of class libraries and lots of ways to get that done. And PHP is a very robust language, and we're going to see it grow and grow and grow. So that's how you would do that. We did work with dynamic processing here, where an error message popped up in the middle here. And if we look at the arrays, we started to look at multi-dimensional arrays that actually process and create our own HTML table structures here. And you want to take a look back at that if you need more information. And it's actually going to process the page so it will look this way with the alternating lines as well. And then, of course, we dealt with the web forms and how things are going to be processed. Depending on what we need to do, we can relocate and things like that and output HTML or output text. However we need things to be output, we placed code inside, PHP code inside HTML, in between HTML, and we've done so many different things there, and that's all dynamic as well. And of course, you can't forget databases. This is always your high-powered functionality for creating dynamic content. And you can see that simply retrieving this, we could format this nicely. This is a plain vanilla table. This is what things look like when we don't do anything to it. When this is the web many years ago, too many years ago almost, in fact. But this is nothing at all attached to this. And with some CSS style sheets, we can really do some great things. And we do a little bit with the manipulating of the data here and creating things with the keywords. So you can see we're highlighting, creating multiple lines, finding fields there. And if we listed all the customers, you can see another example of putting things together. But we leave a lot of this up to you with your CSS skills and your other skills that you do on the client side to really make these things go. But I always love to do dynamic processing. So the thing that you really, though, have to take into consideration is the fact that you don't want to bog down the server side, of course, and you also really don't want to make your life really difficult by trying to do too much. You want to scale it down a little bit until you get really good at it. There's a lot of client-side DHTML work that's coming out that's really good, and when you combine it with a lot of the presentation type servers that are coming out, it doesn't matter if it's Flex or ASP.NET or Laszlo or whatever type of system that you're going to be working on for the client side, it really is going to enhance things when you can connect that to the database side and really get those dynamic processes over to the client side in a special kind of way that's going to allow you to really, really write robust code and write exciting presentations that people can manipulate and interact with. And it really is all based on a lot of the server-side work. Client-side work is great. It is presentational, but when you can get really good at that client side and then you jump into the server side, well, you're really, really, really getting the best mileage for what you can produce in the web world. And it doesn't matter if you're using Flash either. PHP can really do some great things, and HTML really is jumping into that as well. And we know Flash can be very, very dynamic, but you probably didn't know that Flash also can accept PHP in many different ways, whether it's XML, whether it's text, whether it's accepting HTML inside of Flash. You can do all of that based on what you can do with PHP. And you can't forget XML, you can't forget image processing, and even generating Flash SWF files themselves and PDF documents as well, done with PHP. And that's all dynamic. So when we think in terms of dynamic, we're really thinking in terms of everything, creating your universe. So that being said, you can explore this on your own, but we did do a lot of dynamic things in this particular tutorial and set of exercises, and I look forward to you learning a lot with that and really practicing.